Today, we're diving deep into the story of a man who played the long game better than almost anyone in history. We're talking about Sima Yi, a strategist who totally redefined what power looks like, not through these big, flashy victories, but through something else entirely: incredible, almost unbelievable patience. So let's get into it and uncover the secrets of the Crouching Tiger.
You have to picture it, the Three Kingdoms period in ancient China. This was an age of epic heroes, brilliant generals, and huge battles. So how on earth did a man who was famous for refusing to fight, who basically mastered the art of doing nothing, end up on top of it all? Well, that is the big question we're unpacking today.
So here he is. Meet Sima Yi. Now, while all his rivals had these amazing nicknames like soaring dragons and brilliant phoenixes, his was something way more sinister, mostly because it was just quieter. They called him the Crouching Tiger. And believe me, that name is the key to understanding his entire philosophy.
So what does it even mean to be a crouching tiger when you're surrounded by dragons? See, to really get Sima Yi, you have to get his method. It was never about being the strongest guy in the room or the fastest. It was about being the last one standing.
Just think about that nickname for a second, the Crouching Tiger. A tiger doesn't just roar and charge around for no reason. No, it stays low. It's hidden in the grass, it's conserving all its energy, and it's just watching, observing its prey. It waits perfectly still until that one single moment when a strike is absolutely guaranteed to succeed. That was Sima Yi.
So how did he even develop this crazy level of patience? For Sima Yi, this wasn't just some tactic he pulled out of a hat. It was a core part of who he was, something he had cultivated from a really young age. And all these traits, they just worked together perfectly, right? Being low-key and unassuming, well, that let him hide what he was really thinking. Being methodical meant that when he finally did act, it was with absolute precision. But it all came back to that one foundation. He was deeply, deeply calculating and patient.
And if you want to know just how extreme he was, get this. Early in his career, the powerful warlord Cao offered him a job. Sima Yi just felt like the timing was wrong, that it was a dangerous move. So what did he do? He didn't just say no thanks. He pretended to be paralyzed and stuck in bed for years just to avoid taking the job. The commitment to the long game was there right from the start. It's just unbelievable.
But all that patience was about to be put to the ultimate test. Sima Yi was about to come face to face with his greatest rival, a man who was pretty much his complete opposite in every single way.
So on one side, you've got Zhuge Liang, the sleeping dragon. He's one of the most famous military geniuses in all of history, known for these brilliant, daring, aggressive attacks. And on the other side, Sima Yi, the Crouching Tiger, who would much rather build a fortress, sit down, and just wait. It was this classic clash of styles, Zhuge Liang wanted to win the battle. Sima Yi, he only cared about winning the war.
And you should not mistake Sima Yi's patience for weakness. Not for a second. His own rival, the great Zhuge Liang himself, admitted it. He said Sima Yi's strategic mind was just beyond his own. This wasn't some coward hiding in a corner. This was a grand master playing a totally different game.
Okay, this story is just legendary. Zhuge Liang is getting super frustrated, so to try and bait Sima Yi into a fight, he sends him a gift, a set of women's clothing. It's this huge insult, right? Basically calling him a coward. Sima Yi's own officers were outraged. They were ready to riot. But Sima Yi, he just calmly accepts the gift, and then he casually asks the messenger, "So, how's Chancellor Zhuge's appetite these days? How many hours does he sleep?" The messenger, totally caught off guard, admits his master is working himself to death, barely eating or sleeping. And right then, Sima Yi knew. All he had to do was wait.
And that is exactly what happened. Zhuge Liang just wore himself out. He exhausted his army and his own health on one failed campaign after another, trying to break Sima Yi's defense. In the end, the legend didn't die by the sword. He died from sheer exhaustion. The Crouching Tiger simply outlasted the dragon. So after outlasting his biggest threat, you'd think Sima Yi would get a hero's welcome, right? Nope. He came home to a court filled with new rivals who were terrified of his power. His greatest test of patience and his ultimate prize was still ahead of him. He had spent his entire life waiting, all for one single moment. So after all his military success, the new rulers of his kingdom saw him as a threat. So he did what he always did best. He vanished. He retired,
claiming he was getting old and senile, practically on his deathbed. He spent a full decade carefully crafting this image of a harmless, frail old man.
And his main rival, a guy named Cao Shuang, he completely fell for it. He'd go visit Sima Yi and see him slobbering his food, rambling nonsense. He was convinced the old tiger had lost all his teeth. Cao Shuang felt totally secure. He saw no threat at all.
And that, right there, was the fatal mistake. Because the tiger was never asleep. It was just waiting.
The second Cao Shuang and the young emperor left the capital, Sima Yi struck. The dying old man rose from his bed. In a single, unbelievable day, he seized the capital city, took command of the armies, and completely cornered all of his rivals. It was a flawless coup, the results of a decade of silent, patient planning.
I mean, just stop and think about that. 10 years. For 10 years, he pretended to be weak, irrelevant, senile. In our world of instant everything, that kind of long-term thinking is basically a superpower. It's a huge reminder that the biggest goals we have aren't always won with speed, but with relentless strategic endurance. By grabbing power like that, Sima Yi pretty much ended the Three Kingdoms era. But wow, his methods left behind a really complicated and controversial legacy that historians are still arguing about today. You see, his success came from this really unique mix of skills. It was that legendary patience, for sure, but that was combined with a brilliant understanding of politics, military strategy, and just plain human psychology. He wasn't just sitting around waiting. He was always observing, always planning, and always adapting. So why does all this matter? Well, because his family, the Sima clan, would be the ones to finally end all the constant warfare and unify China under a brand new dynasty, the Jin. His entire lifetime of patience literally reshaped the course of Chinese history. It just goes to show you that one person's long-term vision can lay the groundwork for generations.
This quote really just sums it all up, doesn't it? He was never the brightest star in the sky, never the flashiest general. But by staying in the shadows, he was able to make his move when it mattered the most. In the end, the man who stayed hidden cast the longest shadow of all.
And that really leaves us with the final question, the big one. Was he a hero who did what he had to do to end a century of bloodshed? Or was he a ruthless master manipulator, a usurper who just patiently waited for his chance to steal a throne? The answer is probably somewhere in the middle. But one thing is absolutely certain. Sima Yi proved that sometimes the greatest power doesn't come from a sword. It comes from the will to wait.